Welcome back to Talking Europe. I'm pleased to welcome the chief negotiator of the Greek Cypriots for the settlement of the Cyprus problem, Andreas Mavroyiannis. Now, Cyprus has been divided since 1974, when Turkish troops invaded the island in response to a coup aimed at uniting Cyprus with Greece. Since then, Turkish Cypriots have lived in a self-declared republic, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is recognized only by Ankara. The two sides came close to a solution in 2004 and apparently again at the beginning of this year, but the talks stalled once again at the end of February. However, this month has seen efforts to reboot the process. Andreas Mavroyiannis, a warm welcome to the program. Thank you for being our guest.
Very happy to be here.
Could you just give our viewers a quick outline of the benefits of a Cyprus solution if it were to be reached? For those who don't perhaps know this issue so well, benefits both for Cyprus and for the Mediterranean in general.
For Cyprus, reunification, if you like, is the best and the only guarantee for the future of Cyprus, for the country to thrive, for the country to feel secure, to take fully its stride as a country, as a member of the European Union, and for its people to live fully the European dream, if you like. You know, the division is a situation which is completely anachronistic. It creates even moral issues. How can I, for instance, myself, today, as a member of the European Union, be together with 500 million Europeans and not be able to be together with my fellow compatriots? The benefits for the region are also obvious, because the situation in Cyprus is one of the thorns in the Eastern Mediterranean that do not allow a space of peaceful cooperation. And if we were to solve the Cyprus problem, this would mean, you know, better relationship between Greece and Turkey, Cyprus and Turkey, Cyprus, Turkey, Israel, Lebanon, all together, European Union and all of those parts of the Mediterranean.
But aren't people actually quite used to the status quo? And when you talk about, I can't be with the other half, but actually people can travel to the north and the south. There's been a lot of normalization over the years.
Yes, indeed, because, you know, it's important to understand that the Cypriot problem, the Cyprus problem, is not a problem between people. It's a political problem. It's a problem of invasion and occupation by a foreign country. And the relations between the communities, the personal relations, are overall good. But we should create the conditions that would allow this good relationship to thrive.
I'd like to pick up on your point about the good relationships between people in Cyprus on both communities. And I want to bring you this report from our correspondent, Alexia Kafalas, about the actual experience that Greek and Turkish Cypriots have of each other. Let's take a look.
In his recording studio, LARKO is putting the finishing touches to his new album. A composer who uses music to advocate the reunification of his island. For the past 2 years, he's been married to Hatice, who is a Turkish Cypriot.
I think the situation in Cyprus is ridiculous. We should not distinguish between ourselves and call each other Turkish Cypriot or Greek Cypriot, because we're all Cypriots first.
We want to show in what we are doing with our music. We are putting two dialects, two languages together. Okay, so we are showing that because music is exactly the same. We share the same traditions, all right?
LARKO is persuaded that the island's reunification is within reach. But when we meet him in the center of Nicosia the next day, his speech is more reserved. The day's headlines have dimmed his hopes.
The headlines of this newspaper are talking about an impasse in the negotiations. Of course, it's a difficult process, but those who have lost their homes must remember that they won't be able to get them back.
A few days later, he crosses the border into the occupied part of the capital. Here, in this place, a Turkish Cypriot association welcomes children with disabilities or faced with academic difficulties and offers cultural activities. LARKO wants to help these children with his music and hopes to offer them his new album once it's finished. He also believes that it is through this that people will be able to mature, to come closer and understand that they have a common destiny to share.
Andreas Mavroyiannis, so when you see that report, you see some of the young people,
Yes.
Particularly on the Turkish Cypriot side, engaging with the Greek Cypriots. Do you say to yourself those people are representative or exceptional? Because after all, anyone who actually remembers peaceful coexistence now from the old days is at least 50 years old, 55 years old. So is this an exceptional situation, what you just saw there?
Maybe to this extent where you are having a mixed marriage is not very common. But good relations between young people and people from the two communities are rather common, and they become part of the way of life of Cyprus. And this is why we need to do more in order to allow this to happen, and we need to create the political conditions for this. This is what we need with the settlement of Cyprus. By this, if you allow me just 1 second, it is just anecdotal, but I was so happy enough to have attended the concert the evening LARKO and Hadise announced their engagement.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, over the years, as a member of the government, do you sense that civil society initiatives have made a difference when you actually approach negotiations, or is it something totally, on a parallel but completely different track?
I mean, it's both. It's a parallel track. It's track 2 in diplomacy, track 3 in diplomacy, if you like. It's very useful, but it has its own limitations, because you can do a lot of things at the level of the civil society if the track 1, the political process, the political negotiation does not move. Nothing will really move.
On track 1, on the political process, there's a very important actor which we haven't spoken about yet, and that is Turkey. Of course, as I said at the beginning, it's the only country to recognize northern Cyprus as a state. And I'm wondering what you think about Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the president. He's somebody who obviously projects a strong image. He's said there's no question of taking Turkish troops out of northern Cyprus. He's sent boats to explore natural resources off the coast of Cyprus. Do you think, given the man that he is, that a compromise with Erdogan is actually realistic?
We are not choosing our interlocutors, but certainly, very clearly, you are absolutely right. Turkey is the elephant in the room. Turkey is the holder of the solution of the Cyprus problem. We can do a lot of things with the Turkish Cypriots. Without Turkey, we cannot solve the problem. So we need to work with them, and we are going to continue striving and trying to make it happen, to convince them that they need to withdraw their troops. Without withdrawal of troops, there cannot be a solution of the Cyprus problem. We cannot reunify the country and have the threatening presence of foreign troops in Cyprus.
Of course, he argues that there must be total demilitarization. That's to say, Greek troops would have to leave as well.
There are no Greek troops in Cyprus.
Thousands of people, according to him.
But those were treaties of the 1960s. Those troops there, those people there are not an occupation army. They can leave any moment. Any moment they can withdraw. This is not a problem. The problem is the occupation army.
So who guarantees security for Turkish Cypriots if all the Turkish troops leave?
Exactly the one that guarantees security to all communities around the world. Tell me another case where a third country needs to have troops present in order to guarantee security. What is this? This is 19th century. I mean, what is the danger for the Turkish Cypriot community? 21st century, a member state of the European Union, in a federation with political equality. Are we serious that there is a problem?
You'd be looking more at a mixed police force, perhaps something like Northern Ireland or some kind of
things
thing
like that.
that.
There can be, and we are working in the framework of international legality. There is the UN, there is Security Council, there is European Union, there are a lot of things. But short of any right of unilateral interference in the internal affairs of a sovereign country.
Just to get back to Turkey's role in a more broad sense, I mean, obviously in the past, it was imperative, or very important, let's say, for Turkey to solve the Cyprus issue as a step towards Turkey joining the European Union.
Yes.
Do you get a sense now that because Turkey is looking more towards the Middle East, to Eurasia, to these former Ottoman territories, that it's perhaps losing interest in the EU, and therefore its motivation has perhaps gone down in the search of a Cyprus solution as well?
Yes, one can say this, though for us those are two separate issues. We would have liked, if you like, the accession process to be a motivation for Turkey to solve the Cyprus problem. We don't see this happening, unfortunately. We don't see also Turkey really working sufficiently for their accession negotiations. We consider that this is not wise. We consider that this is a pity. We believe that the process of rapprochement with the European Union is something that might have a transformative effect on the Turkish society, and a good transformative effect. So we regret the fact that Turkey is distancing itself from Europe. But, I mean, there is not much we can do about this. We cannot at the same time, sacrifice the values of the European Union, and we cannot, as Cyprus, become in any way the Trojan horse of Turkey in the European Union.
I want to ask you about hydrocarbons. I mentioned this in passing before. This has created a bit of tension in the negotiations, as I understand it, because on April the 5th, your administration signed agreements with ExxonMobil and Qatar Petroleum to explore resources in southern Cyprus. Turkey was angry about this. Do you think this was a wise move when you're trying to build confidence in the peace talks?
Absolutely. The government of Cyprus is a government of a sovereign country, and the government needs to act in order to promote and protect the interest of the country. We have signed contracts with Exxon, with Qatar, with Eni, with Total, for the exploration of the natural resources that exist in the continental shelf of Cyprus, within the area of the exclusive economic zone of our country. And we cannot, if you like, accept that any third country blackmails us because we are doing what we have to do for our country and for the region. And by the way, you should not forget that it was very clear always that if we have discoveries of hydrocarbons, those discoveries will benefit all Cypriots, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriot alike, but Cypriots, only Cypriots. And we cannot do otherwise in our country.
I was going to come on to that. I mean, it would obviously be very important to make that point to Turkish Cypriots that this exploration would benefit everybody in a reunited Cyprus.
Goes without saying for us. We are not working against our compatriots, the Turkish Cypriots. We are working for the benefit of the country as a whole, but Cyprus, for Cyprus and for the European Union. We are a member of the European Union. We want to be always a good partner and participate in the European integration. And if we manage, through Cyprus and the Eastern Mediterranean, to contribute to the energy security of the European Union through diversification of sources, we would be most happy to do so.
When you mention diversification, are you really saying a way to help the EU find alternatives to Russian energy? Is that what this is really about?
It's not against Russia. It's diversification means that the European Union will not depend on a single source and will not depend on a single transit country. It affects everything. We are talking about the European Union as a group of countries, industrialized countries with enormous energy needs, to be confident that they can satisfy their needs. So the more sources you have, the more routes you have, the better you are.
Yeah. Let's not forget, though, that in 2014, the Cypriot president withdrew from peace talks over the issue of Turkish research of of an energy zone. Do you think there's really a risk that these negotiations will fall hostage to the energy issue again?
We hope not, but as in 2014, what happened, President Anastasiadis did not withdraw. What happened was that the Turks were conducting research in the exclusive economic zone of Cyprus. We couldn't continue business as usual. This is why there was an interruption of the talks. But now, of course, we don't want these kind of situations, but we fear that, yes, Turkey might create again some tension, but this will not deter us from exercising our sovereign rights and will not deter us from trying our best with utmost commitment and determination to solve the Cyprus problem.
We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much for being our guest, Andreas Mavroyiannis, and that's all we have time for this edition of Talking Europe. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you very much.